Hello everyone and welcome back to Very Cold Lasagna, your filthy casual place for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I am DylanLasagna and welcome back to another weekly recap of my 2022 NFL season coverage. And week 16 was either a bundle of joy or a bundle of terribleness for each and every team on this past holiday weekend, whether they played on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, or the day after Christmas. Either way, it was a holiday weekend of football for fans to enjoy. So we're here to talk about it, recap it, and go through it all on this holiday hangover Christmas edition of Very Cold Lasagna. So anyway, let's talk about the week that was, as the playoff picture starts to narrow down a bit. We had a couple more playoff spots clinched this past weekend, and yeah, some more playoff intensity is starting to strengthen in, pal. Start to narrow. So anyway, that being said, we kicked things off week 16 in the rain on Thursday Night Football, only for that $15 a month on Amazon Prime. As man, the Jets really can't catch a break with Zach Wilson. He continued his turnover-filled struggles, and that got him benched yet again, this time for a CFL starter by the name of Chris Streveler. Yeah, some random guy off the street. But for the Jaguars, though, Trevor Lawrence, he didn't have his most efficient outing, but he did just enough in the rain as the Jaguars rained on the Jets' parade and their playoff chances even further, but increased their own chances of potentially winning the division in the AFC South, per se, as they beat the Jets 19-3. And looks like the Jets are getting back Mike White and putting Zach Wilson back on the inactive list for these final two games. So there you go, Jets fans. You're getting what you wanted and potentially even more in this offseason. But more on that when we get there. Going to the Christmas Eve Saturday slate of games, starting with the early morning portion. Excuse me. Despite a better passing day from Desmond Ridder of the Falcons, that Ravens defense limited their scoring opportunities, as Tyler Huntley's second quarter touchdown to DeMarcus Robinson became the difference maker to eliminate the Falcons from playoff contention 17-9. The Panthers' rushing attack of Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard absolutely slaughtered the Lions defense with over 300 rushing yards. Yes, you read that right. 300 combined rushing yards, as Carolina beat the Lions 37-20 and set themselves up for a big showdown next week in Week 17 against the Tampa Bay Bucks for the NFC South. Some self-inflicted mistakes in Chicago by Josh Allen made a game that was pretty winnable, a little closer than it was. But of course, you can't have a game in Chicago without some good old-fashioned Bears football, tearing down the Chicago Bears. And eventually, the rushing attack of Devin Singletary and James Cook led to a second-half explosion for the Bills in bear weather that allowed Buffalo to clinch its third straight AFC East division title, 35-13, in a victory over the Chicago Bears. The Saints defense put the heat on Deshaun Watson as they shut out him and his offense in the second half, allowing the New Orleans Saints to score 17 unanswered points on offense, on their end at least, to eliminate the skid marks, the Cleveland Browns, from playoff contention 17-10. Geno Smith struggled mightily without Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and Kenneth Walker being shut down by that Kansas City Chiefs defense. And Patrick Mahomes on the other end, and his offense did just enough, despite a few miscues of their own, to put the game away against the Seahawks 24-10. Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and the Giants offense tied the game up before the 2-minute warning and got a key 2-point conversion. But despite a potential back-breaking sack on the hurry-up offense by Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, they managed to eat the hearts out of the G-Men with Greg Joseph's 61-yard field goal game-winning kick to put themselves closer to that number 2 seed that they're trying to keep away from my San Francisco 49ers, as they beat the New York Giants in their last home game of the season, 27-24. I got to give credit to the Vikings a little bit. That winter whiteout idea. Pretty solid. For a final home game for the season. Pretty cool of them. Up 22-0 in the first half over the Patriots. Yeah, not a good idea to have some second half turnovers, though, by Cincinnati's offense, because that allowed the Patriots to claw back into the game. And with just over 2 minutes left, they were only down 4. But a turnover by Ramondre Stevenson in the final minute of the game and a turnover on downs allowed Cincinnati to hang on to beat the Patriots 22-18. Despite another rushing feat for Derrick Henry, Malik Willis of the Tennessee Titans mostly struggled with a piss-poor supporting cast. And, of course, Malik still being a rookie, hasn't played much. And that allowed the Texans defense to get in his face as Davis Mills and his offense did just enough to slowly churn up a lead and give up something to Jacksonville on Christmas, at least for this weekend, as the Texans beat the Titans 19-14. Yeah, a lot of these early games were just like, they're just going to do just enough. Going to the late afternoon portion of games, where it got a little bit more exciting. Brock Purdy and George Kittle lit up the Commanders' tight defense in the second half with 2 touchdowns. And the 49ers' electric defense put so much heat on Taylor Heineke that he got benched for Carson Wentz. Ron Rivera had enough of Heineke, Carson Wentz didn't really do that much better, as the 49ers beat the Commanders 37-20. Meanwhile, the big game in the afternoon window between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, the Eagles offense still able to keep its beat despite not having Jalen Hurts with backup Uncle Rico, Gardner Minshew. But man, that high-intensity shootout game for them was undone by 4 killer turnovers. 2 by Gardner Minshew and 1 really bad one by Miles Sanders late in the game. And that allowed Dallas to hang on late in a high-intensity game on Christmas Eve. And their slim division hopes still alive as they held on 40-34 to split the season series against the Philadelphia Eagles. Fortunately, if you're an Eagles fan, you still have one chance to win the division and the top seed this coming Week 17 against the New Orleans Saints at home. Then in an NFL Network nightcap game, on a night where they honored the late Franco Harris and the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, the Steelers rallied late from a late deficit against the Las Vegas Raiders as Kenny Pickett connected with George Pickens in a nice felt win for them, as the Steelers beat the Raiders 16-10 to increase their very slim playoff chances and down the Raiders as such. Then we get to the actual Christmas Day slate of games. A productive first half took a complete 180 for the Miami Dolphins as Tua Tagovailoa threw 3 interceptions on 3 straight drives that would allow the Packers to claw away on Christmas morning, give the Dolphins some coal, and give themselves some presents in the form of keeping their very slim yet stubborn playoff hopes alive, beating the Dolphins 26-10. Now, in fairness, Tua apparently did suffer a concussion in that game, and he's in concussion protocol, so more on him later. Then, in the middle portion of the Christmas Day slate, the Rams laid the slime all over the Broncos as Baker Mayfield, Cam Akers, and Tyler Higbee completely torched the vaunted Denver defense, while the Broncos offense yet again was so bad that we even had Patrick Starr, yes, from SpongeBob SquarePants, yes, the Patrick Starr, roasting so frequently Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. It got so bad. Yes, even Patrick Starr on national television, on Nickelodeon, with Noah Eagle and the commentary crew. Patrick Starr was roasting Russell Wilson, turning the ball over. The Broncos getting the backup, getting pick-sixed. It got so bad that Nathaniel Hackett, finally, it took Patrick Starr roasting the Broncos for Nathaniel Hackett to lose his job, as the Rams beat the Broncos 51-14 on a Christmas afternoon, and Nathaniel Hackett is finally fired for leading the most embarrassing and disappointing team in 2022. Meanwhile, in the nightcap, as I calm down here, in the nightcap of the Christmas Day slate. And yeah, it was a pretty boring game, even though I was watching the Warriors game. But anyway, a botched pitch by the Cardinals offense late allowed Tampa to tie the game, but nothing more for them as the game went into overtime where Tom Brady led his offense down the field to get into Ryan Succop's range to win it against Arizona. And as a result, same deal with Carolina, except for Tampa. It's a win and in situation next week against the Panthers at home. If they win it next week, they get the NFC South. And they get to face, the Dallas Cowboys at home. So Tampa beats Arizona 19-16 in overtime to close out the Christmas Day slate. Then in the Monday Night Football game to close out Week 16, the Chargers defense manhandled Nick Fails, Fails, and the non-existent Colts offense as Justin Herbert and friends, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams easily took care of the rest as the Chargers clinched their first playoff berth since 2018, easily taking care of the Colts 20-3. So that was your game slate on this Christmas weekend, Week 16. Hope you enjoyed the football that was on a holiday weekend, even though half of the games were kind of, Yeah, it was kind of So anyway, let's look at your winners and losers of Week 16. Starting with your winners, I like the rushing attack of Devin Singletary and James Cook this week. Even though it was a little bit of a mistake, real performance by Josh Allen this week. I think they did a lot to undercut that by going with the rushing attack of Singletary and James Cook. And they were very efficient against a very weak Bears rush defense. The offensive line for the Bills provided them so much room that both of them were just able to slice and dice through a lot of gaping holes that the Bears defense were like giving them. So I think I said this last time when I talked about Devin Singletary and James Cook. The Bills should be going to them more frequently so they don't have to put so much pressure onto Josh Allen. Make Singletary and James Cook like a 1-2 punch. Make them a feature point in the run game. Like, so again, don't have Josh Allen run like too much. Don't put so much pressure on him to like make the aggressive play. The Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not going to do anything in the playoffs. They're not going to even backdoor into the playoffs. But on a night where they honored one of their fallen legends, on a night where they had one of the most historic plays. You can't really deny them putting together a pretty cool comeback win against, ironically, the same team that they pulled it off against. So, brownie points, I guess, for the Steelers for doing it all this weekend, getting a good Christmas gift for them. And then I guess you could say the Green Bay Packers, for stubborn as they are or have been this week, this whole season, they're suddenly in the mix for that last NFC wildcard spot. Aaron Rodgers looked fine, and so did his supporting cast, especially Christian Watson and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And the defense did pretty good, catching Tua's mistakes, despite the fact that he was concussed in the game. And they also got some much-needed help the day prior with Washington, Seattle, the Lions, all losing their games. I guess it also helps with the Giants losing too. So that kind of helps, even though they can technically clinch their spot this week with one win. So for the Packers, all they have left to do is win out. They can probably win a game against the Vikings in a shootout because their defense is very sus. And we all saw what happened with the Lions against the Panthers. So as much as I hate to say it, they're probably going to backdoor into the playoffs somehow in some way. And then for the losers this week, Tua Tagovailoa. I know the concussion definitely had a lot to do with his second half play, but it seems like his performance in prior to that it was not good. It was not good. He was missing a lot of players. He was overthrowing his receivers, and I don't know. It's something. It was a really like it was like a complete 180 from how he played in the very cold conditions in Buffalo to the slightly warmer but not that warm conditions in Miami at home against Green Bay. And that's an even tougher defense than Buffalo's, if that makes any sense. So it's not a good time for Tua. This is even worse time for Miami to lose him, because they're not even that far off from the other playoff teams, like on the last wild card spot. So yeah, this is not a good time to lose him. The Seattle Seahawks. This is a game where they desperately needed to win because they already lost against the 49ers. They had already lost to the Tampa Bay Bucks. And going into this game against the Chiefs, they really need to win this game, even though it doesn't really count against the NFC. But they still had to get as many wins as possible to get back into the playoff race. But man, they did not look like a team that deserved to be in it, because there was nowhere for Kenneth Walker to go. They couldn't stop the run with Isaiah Pacheco on defense. They had a hard time covering Travis Kelce and all that. But when you look at their offense, Geno Smith looked rattled in the pocket. Mistakes were frequent. With DK Metcalf often covered up. Tyler Lockett is out with injury. And like going back to the defense, they just gave up too many big plays too early, and they were already in a big hole. Like not even well into the second quarter with the first 14-0 deficit. So Seattle is falling apart, like really falling apart. And going into this big game against the Jets, even though it's Mike White, they're going to be facing an even tougher defense, no matter who the quarterback is. The Detroit Lions, they needed just about every win they could get, and they won. Prior to the Panthers game, they won just about 6-7. This is a winnable game against a Carolina team, despite how well their Carolina's own defense was. Sunday's game against Carolina, though, was an absolute killer for them. And it's not a definitive killer for their playoff chances, but now they need a lot of help. You can't be allowing over 300 rushing yards to random running backs and expect to get into the playoffs, let alone win a playoff game if you're Detroit. And that defense, outside of the defensive line, it got exposed. It got exposed for what it was. It allowing two random running backs to run over you. That's not good. That's not going to win you games in the postseason. You got to find a way to shut them down, and they absolutely failed to do that. Now, because they lost this critical game, and that was in the NFC too, they have to win out. They have to win both of their remaining games against Chicago, against the Packers. And that Packers game is going to be pretty big in the last week of the season, because it's probably going to be for that last spot. Granted that Washington keeps slipping up their games, keeps losing. So the Lions absolutely need to have that game against the Panthers, and they blew it. Their defense blew that game. It wasn't entirely. There were some mistakes made on the offense, but that defense really sunk the bed, allowing 300 rushing yards. Not good at all. So those were your winners and losers of Week 16. And as we transition over to the hurry-up discussion of the week, where I talked about things in, the typical hurry-up offense, I want to talk about, the New York Jets. They kicked off the week Thursday night on national television, and, we got to see another look at Zach Wilson. And, yeah, he did, like I said, he didn't look good at all. He turned the ball over. He looked rattled in the pocket. Took too many sacks. And there's been a lot of rampant reports over the weekend, specifically from Fox Sports' Jay Glazer, that the New York Jets, could be looking to move on from Zach Wilson after just 2 seasons. So literally not even two years after they drafted them with the second overall pick. So that brings up the discussion of like should they really release Zach Wilson? Should they keep him, delete him? What should they do with Zach Wilson? And honestly, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough if you're the Jets, if you're a Jets fan, or an outsider at least. I'll flip the script there, because if you're a Jets fan, I mean, at least from a hardcore perspective, it's like, oh yeah, let's just get rid of him. But if you're maybe a semi-casual or even a filthy casual Jets fan, it's like maybe give him another year, and maybe even an outsider. Give him another year. The thing, I don't know. For me, maybe you should give him like a lease, a very short lease. Maybe give him another year, but make him the third stringer. Maybe give him the third string quarterback. Make him compete for the starting role in the offseason, in the training camp. In preseason. If he doesn't do well in the preseason, release him. I don't know. What do you guys think the Jets should do with Zach Wilson? Like, should they really move on from him? Like where, if they do, what team could possibly use him, and where could he really succeed? It's an interesting dilemma for the Jets and for Zach Wilson. Like, what team could he really benefit on? And how could Zach Wilson use that experience, if he can ever use that experience? It's an interesting thought. It's an interesting thought to think about. So those are my thoughts on Zach Wilson, because he's a young kid. I think he's a pretty young kid, and he's in a big man's world. I think he has some grown. I think he has a lot of growing up to do, and maybe being a backup, or being given another chance, another year in New York, to truly maybe develop, maybe giving a fresh start somewhere else, it would be best for him. But I'd like to know your thoughts about it. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Week 16 of the 2022 season. Let me know your thoughts about this past week, this holiday weekend of Christmas edition, in the comments below. Anyway, this is DylanLasagna of Very Cold Lasagna signing out, and keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And until next time, peace out.